All right, everybody, it is official. It has been revealed. Zoe Lawton, aka Lawless, is the next playable character in Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, which, like, we already knew this through leaks. There's nothing really surprising here, to be honest. It's not like, you know, some big bomb has been dropped, but still it's a little crazy to actually see it in person, to see the design and to see the pitch. Because this almost certainly was done like a year ago, okay? It's been reported by like Jason Schreier that they have a skeleton crew working on this. I don't know how small a skeleton crew is, but I would assume that it's like maybe a dozen people are still working on this. I think it's very, very minimal and very few. But the choice of having Zoe Lawton or Lawless as one of the playable characters is just so fascinating to me, because it kind of skips over what I would say is like one of the what should be key plot points or concepts when designing a game like this. And that is to make a game and characters and expansions and stuff that appeal to your player base that they will want. And one of the things that I have found so fascinating about the modern era of gaming is that seemingly has taken a back seat. So, you know, again, it's very, very obvious when you think about it. You're trying to sell me a product, me, your customer. You should get something put together that I, your customer, will want. But that's not a thing right now. Instead, you see developers making character designs that everybody agrees are awful, with like the most cringe, like, I don't even know, way of presenting it to players, where it's just assumed you're gonna like it. It's like a parent scolding their toddler for not liking lima beans. But in this case, they're wanting us to give them lots of money. And it's just bizarre, because you would think after all this time, after so many flops and so many mistakes and stuff, that they would learn their lesson and start to really try to push it and give players what they want. But that just was never really a consideration. You think of Suicide Squad, what could you have done to win players over? What could you have done even 2, 3, 4 years ago in the designing phase for this game? What were the choices for expansion characters, for new playable characters? They had a whole onslaught of options. They could have done a like alternative universe version of the Flash. They could have done an alternative universe version of Scarecrow. They even have Scarecrow skins and weapons and stuff in the game right now, but he's just not present. They could have done crazy stuff with is it Clockman, or what's that guy from Arkham City who has all the dialogue unique to what day your console was set to? You guys know what I'm talking about? I can't remember, but whatever that guy's name is, they could have done crazy stuff with that. They could have done Bane as a playable character. They could have come in and done Calendar Man. That's it. They could have done the Mad Hatter. There's so many things they could have done. Even Catwoman. Like, you're like, well, just not technically a member of the Suicide Squad. Who cares? Like, they're already doing crazy things like killing off Batman, and you know, they could do whatever they want. It's alternative universes. I just saw that Deadpool movie, and it's, you know, Deadpool has the whole little speech in that movie where he's like, let's be honest, the multiverse thing, fun idea. Didn't work. It didn't work. Let's take the L and let's move on. And I think that that's the case with all this, but at the very least with the multiverse thing, you can get away with whatever you want. You can do whatever you want. There are no limitations, okay? Which is why they did like Mrs. Freeze instead of just Mr. Freeze. But even that, right? Like, even that, you should ask why. Why didn't you just give us, like, throw $5 million at Arnold Schwarzenegger, scan his face, put him in the game, and get some cheap dialogue? Because there's only like 10 lines of unique dialogue for these characters. I mean, it's very, very little. Maybe in the cutscenes after you rescue them, there's like a 2-minute cutscene. Maybe. I think the last one was like 90 seconds long. But you pay Arnold $1 million for that. He's doing it. What's $1 million when your budget was already 200? You know, just toss in like $1 million. Get Arnold. He'll come on here. Easy marketing. Did you see they added Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze into Suicide Squad? Or what's his name? The John Cena as, oh man, I haven't had enough coffee today. Peacemaker. Like, you could have had Peacemaker in here. Easy marketing, like, hype. Easy. But instead, they put characters together that literally nobody asked for. Like, nobody. And it seems like they never stopped to ask, would our customers even like this? It just was never a consideration, which is what's particularly baffling. Because again, any other industry, if you're going to sell your customers something, the first question should be, is this something that they want or need? But in the gaming space right now, that comes way down the line, or they never ask it at all. It's like, no, you're going to like it. Shut up. You're going to like it. You know, sit down. Even like Concord, which we've talked, you know, to hell and back about. Even Concord is an example of something where it's like, who asked for this? You never stopped to ask if this was what anybody wanted. You just did it and felt entitled to the player base. You know, I won't be specific, but I've even spoken to a handful of developers recently that work at a pretty large and sizable company. And it's pretty surprising to me that a lot of people in these positions will just do stuff and they never stop to ask, does anyone want this? You know, like, does anybody actually want this? They have a new approach of trying to just chase the trend and then just trusting that the players will come afterwards, instead of just making a compelling game where they're like, oh, we think players that really like engaging stories are going to connect with this. Or these are fans of DC. So we're going to give them those fan service heroes and villains that they know and love. We're going to be true to form with them. We're going to be respectful. And then we're going to maybe experiment a little, which you can do. Let me be very clear. I don't have a problem with tossing in like a Zoe Lawton Lawless character as a playable character. My point is you should do that after you've established a successful live service game, after you've got thousands of players concurrent 24/7. Once you've done that, then you can stand to be a little bit more experimental. But when you're in the phase of the game's life cycle, when you're trying to win players over, to give them something that they are not particularly interested in, I don't know anything about Zoe Lawton. I don't know anything about Lawless. I barely know anything about DC to begin with. But what I know, the little I know, is that I don't know anything about her. So I have no reason to be excited about her as a character being added to the game. At least with Joker, I'm like, well, it's Joker. Yeah, he's more of the Jonkler. In this case, I'm the Joker, baby, but at least I know him. Or Mrs. Freeze. It's a little bit, you know, one or two steps removed. I know who Mr. Freeze is, so I can kind of connect the dots with this and, you know, figure out roughly what's going on. But I just have no idea who this is. No clue. No clue. So I don't have that much of an emotional impetus to get in there and to spend money on it. Which I know people are like, well, it's a free thing. Yeah, it's free if you grind for like 3 to 5 to 10 hours, depending on the season. Otherwise, you can pay $10 and just unlock them immediately. But still, anyway, all of this to say, I just find it baffling how entitled so many of these studios are when it comes to your money and your attention and time. Because you think that they would be focusing on how do we give players what they want. Go on Reddit, look at what the most hotly desired playable characters are and give them that, and then get experimental later. But they should be trying to win us over, but instead the approach through this whole debacle has been, no, you're going to play it and you're going to like it. No wonder it's a failure. No wonder. And obviously they couldn't make changes now. After the horrible launch, they pretty much pulled everybody off the game. It's a skeleton crew now. So it's not like they could just change. You know, these characters take a year to 2 years to implement from the first sketches to when it's actually in the game playable and balanced. So it's not as simple as just swap it, you know, but I think that this perfectly encapsulates the point that we've been making with Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, is that it was a game made by Rocksteady, a formerly very capable team, but it was made in a way where they just assumed or presumed everybody would love it. Everybody would just throw money at them for it. And that was a big mistake. You can't assume that. You have to win people over. And I think that that's also the lesson, even looking at someone like AC Shadows with everything that went down 2 days ago with that and being delayed and all that. It seems like Ubisoft has taken an approach where they've realized they can't just assume players will come and buy the game because it's from a recognizable franchise, AC. They can't just assume that anymore. Same with Star Wars Outlaws. You would think that Star Wars, if any game could have an easy time selling in America, it would be a Star Wars open world game, right? Not so. It's still sold like whatever Joe Raptor said, I think 1 million units, 1.2 million, something like that. But for a game that needs probably 7 to 8 million units to break even, that's not enough. That's not enough. So I think that there's a shift happening in the industry right now where studios and publishers are realizing that they cannot take for granted players' attention and money. And I know that sounds like, no, duh. But that's because for years, companies would put out kind of a mediocre game at full price. And if it was a AAA game, a lot of people would still buy it, you know? Even now, in some cases, there are studios that can kind of get away with it. Jedi Survivor is a really good example of a game that was busted at launch and still apparently did pretty well in terms of market performance. Probably not as well as it could have, but that game was still pretty rough at launch with all the FSR2 crap they were trying to pull, where it looked just like somebody took a Krispy Kreme donut and smeared it all over your screen. It was so blurry. But on the whole, it seems like companies can't just get away with pumping stuff like AAA stuff out and just hoping or assuming that players will buy it. You can't do that anymore. And I think that that's good because it means that they have to polish it. You know, that's what I found so compelling and so interesting about that memo that leaked out of Ubisoft from Yves Guillemot to the employees, where he said there were, what was the exact thing he said? He said, we want to remove the small frictions from the game that we would typically have fixed in post-launch patches and stuff. But just that tells you something that, true to be fair, is not just true of Ubisoft. It's true of EA. It's true of Take-Two. It's true of all of these companies, okay? That you can release a product that's 90% of the way there, and then you do the 10% after, once you've gotten the money. And maybe you don't do all 10%. Maybe you just do 7%. Maybe there's still bugs you never fix. Or maybe it's still not as optimized as it should be, but who cares? You already made your money, right? But now they're saying, we can't just assume players are going to buy it with the promise of what it will be. We have to deliver the final vision, the final product, day one, which again should be no duh. That's one of the reasons people have such confidence in like Rockstar games, because they know day one that's going to be polished. But still, I think that it's a good shift that we are witnessing. And you know, there's other news like the tremendous success of Black Myth Wukong that shows you can make a crap ton of money with single player stuff. You don't have to rely on multiplayer live service, battle pass, paid cosmetics, blah, blah, blah. You don't have to rely on all that. You, if you just have a good game that people are confident in with good word of mouth, boom. That's all you need. So it's a very interesting time in the industry. But mark my words, there's going to be more flops. This isn't like this might be one of the turning points where decisions will start to change, but there are still a lot of live service games in the works that are still set to come out. I mean, there's you know, even just with PlayStation, there's stuff like Marathon and the Horizon multiplayer game and Fair Game $. There's all sorts of stuff. He took my thing.